Muy bien. La última charla de esta edición de Sisteccer la brindará el arquitecto José Luis Lemos, Managing Partner de Aflalo y Gasperini, Arquitectos de Brasil, que se titula 60 años del proceso continuo en la creación e innovación en fachadas. Bienvenido, José Luis.
Olá, tudo bem? Primeiro, peço desculpas por falar em inglês, porque meu portunhol, eu não sei até onde vas. Poderia tentar, pero a última de la noche, eu creio que em inglês será melhor. So, cambiando para inglês agora. So, sorry for this. I'll try to make this as light as possible. I know it's been a long day, and I have only like 300 slides here. No, I'm joking. But I'll try to make it, to tell a little bit of, where is it? So curiously, when I was invited to come here, it was a, let's say, a opportunity to show us our first project of our office, which was done here in Buenos Aires, right? So everything started in an international competition, which was in a site right next to here. I'll show a little bit. And we still have this our founding milestone and we are a 60-year-old architectural practice based in São Paulo, right? Those three guys, Plínio Croce, Roberto Aflalo, and Gasperini, they were the first founders of the office. And today, we are, let's say, Felipe, Grazielli, myself, and Roberto were the second and third generation of the office, right? We basically operate in all scales, different uses. As it was said wisely today, like, we try not to be specialized in anything and do everything. So we kind of shift experiences from one use to another, from one scale to another. And I think that's, and counting on all of the different consultants that have been with us all this time. So yes, we did 60 years last year. And as a mark of that, this project was the first one we designed. That was the founding piece of our office. It was an international competition. It was held for Peugeot headquarters here. The site, just to situate yourselves, coincidentally, I didn't know that, we are here right now, and the site is right on the next corner, right? So this was an invitation. So this is today, right? We're over there. So this was international invitation for a high-rise tower. It was supposed to be the highest tower in South America or Latin America, surprising the Latin American in Mexico. There was almost 200 participants all over the world, and basically this was the winning competition. And I'll go through. I have a lot of stuff here, so. This was the winning competition, so I put some of the slides of the competition here, using concrete, some of the presentation of the time, you know, like the very modern architecture. We still have a model, which is picture taken of the model in our in the hall of our office. And it was basically study a lot, and it's set, like they say, the principles we basically set the office to work like until nowadays. So based on this project, the result and the amount of, you know, like this representations of the competition entry. So a lot of in-depth engineering studies for that to make it as feasible and constructible as possible. And we came all the way to construction documents on this, but it didn't went through the construction itself. But coincidentally, there was in MoMA in New York, there was an exhibition, I think like seven years ago, something like that. And they had like a small corner there that showed the competitions, and then they showed all of this, you know, like fancy things and, you know, wacky stuff. And so these were the other entries, and at the time they had like a criticism that maybe the winning entry was a bit too rational and all that. I'm talking about 1960, right? And that may be, you know, like something that was unbuildable at the time should have won. So it's kind of a weird criticism. So this is an image of the original, and we played with this AI just to bring it here, right? So based on that, you know, like 60 years, I mean, I'm gonna throw some relevant projects that made part of our history here. So in the 1970s, we did the headquarters of IBM in São Paulo. It's still there. So later on, like 15 years ago, we did a renovation of the glazing system to actually bring, you know, new technology of glass and glazing that it was totally outdated, but it's still like a very relevant architectural piece in São Paulo. From that time, you know, we did several projects. I like to show that image because it shows a lot of representation of the architecture at that time. And it shows also the pace of the design process, right? I mean, to do an image like that, you had like several people working, you know, several days and all that. And today, we have like 20 renderings in 2 minutes. So it's a different moment on the project. So this is another, you know, like a glass box for the Metro Operational Control Center. You know, some of the late towers based on a structural grid with the outer circulation course. You know, some of the representation of the area. This is another one, like another corporate project, like a headquarters of a bank. Also, this was already shows, whoops, sorry. Some of this concrete grid with the glazed in between that we've been working as a architectural language for several years. You know, and this was let's say, a very important project in the office. Because this was the Citibank headquarters in São Paulo. And to do that, it was, let's say, a turning point in terms of technology and systems in Brazil. So it was the first building ever to have a glazed system in Brazil. It was the first building to have like not glued stones in the facade, but hanging with the American system. And it was the first building to have all this ice refrigerator for the air conditioning and all that. So we basically had like a whole office built somewhere to develop this throughout the years. And that set up the new standards, let's say, for corporate office that kind of guided us on the following years for many different projects. So I found this interesting. It's like a sketch at the time, you know, like this is mid-'80s, right? So, and so following that, you know, like we have like a family of projects in a neighborhood in Brazil. Used to be an old factory neighborhood, and we decided to. It was designed over 2 decades. A family called Atriums, which started with that one on the right side there, so creating this big atrium. And then this grid, we started using as a language to develop a series of a family of projects that was done throughout the different years. And they had like a lot of urbanistic issues, like to expand footpaths, bring in the people to the ground floor and all that, but it's not the case here. So at that time, this was very innovative as well, right? So in '92, it was like started this glass box, you know, like this, another bank headquarters. So this was also like a different language from what was being done at the time. So, and then we talk about sustainability, right? So this tower, it was the first LEED Platinum tower that we designed in Brazil. This was done in '98. It was done a little bit late, but it's interesting that it's all glazed. You know, the white parts, it's opaque white glass. So it's kind of interesting because it's a white building. And in São Paulo, with the pollution you have and all that, you kind of stay like that because it washes off very easy and all that, so it doesn't retain any dirt or anything. So it's kind of a interesting case. And then, you know, some of the moments, you know, like the entrance, we have the transit levels there. And this is another important project because it was the first project done with unitized system in Brazil, right? So, and this was in the early 20s. So you can see here, and it was kind of interesting because you could see the precision, you know, of the unitized system versus what we've been doing at that time before that. So you could see the granite very plain, you know, with the glaze, and everything was something that, well, everything changed after that. And here you can see a moment of the project that you have like the unitized system there. Here you have like a glaze, you know, within columns, and this was like built in separately, and then the terrace is here. So it's like you have like 3 different construction systems in one picture here. So we had it all in that project. Well, this is an area which we did several projects. This is one project we did in the late 90s until all of these towers here and this footpath. So it's like several corporate towers here developed over 2 decades. So basically, we did a lot of work on these towers here. So this is one of them, Rochaverá. I believe that's where down offices in São Paulo. And, you know, some of the images here. This is another project which was the same owner of the shopping center that is across the street. And we had the opportunity to design a footpath that links both malls, you know, and it's a glazed, air-conditioned pedestrian bridge open to the public. It was an interesting project to develop with escalators and all that. So, still on the certification, I'm not talking a lot about sustainability here, but we always say that sustainability, it's a consequence of the process, right? We always did that, and of course, you know, the new materials and the way you measure and the glazed and all that, you know, lead us to whatever we are developing. But this was an interesting project that the client said to us, I want, you know, 2 towers. It looks like one. So we had a competition done from somewhere else, and then we came up with the same solution for this site because the competition didn't happen. So we had the idea, we brought it here. He was shopping around for different architects. But then, like in 3 days, we had the design, and then we went forward. He bought it and all that. But it has like interesting moments, you know, like all of this bridging and the office spaces crossing around one tower to the other, right? It has a lot of specificities on the development of the construction there, but and then besides that, those corporate towers there with the inclined plane, it's all part of this big complex that we have been working on. Another, you know, like mixed-use project. We had like a shopping center, you know, like it's half shopping center, half office space in Paulista Avenue. Now we're building up like it has like 7 underground levels, right? So now we are occupying, like expanding the shopping center to the underground, and we're designing these pieces like to kind of engage and then create different access there. So. And then, you know, some of more recent examples, already playing with a more lightful language, all of these skins that come out of the building. And something which was really important as well for this learning curve, of the project. Like, we did some collaborations with some international offices. This was with KPF. They are the design architects. We have all of the production documents and all that. So basically, they do like concept design, and we do all the rest to get it built. But this is in Rio. It's 2 towers linked together with KPF, right? And then this is another one with in São Paulo with KPF. It's a very unique tower there. Crescencio involved, right? And this one with Clark, right? This is another big, important tower with very complex facade. It has a huge side, there's uphill, with landscape going on, but it has like this interesting, twisting facade, create these movements, the louvers, the insulated glass, which is not something very, common in Brazil. And also, like we say, curves, but in the end, it's like it's geometrically architectural design with curves and all of these patterns and all that. But in the end, there is like, this is an interesting atrium that you kind of bring the pedestrian footpath inside, create a small plaza, and you kind of create, like this this destiny place, like this local point that everybody knows, and then this is the entrance of the building. But then, like, this is what we can do with curved glass in Brazil, like small details whenever we can. We've been struggling today, but we have some examples here. Corporate tower, this is a residential one, like some, moments here. This is, like, for example, this glass here, we were doing like a very sinuous curve and all that on the residential. The contractors in the end had it faceted, but on the corporate, which is close to the pedestrian, which makes you feel that, the upper levels are actually curved. We managed to actually bring those nice details to the project, which is, it's not common in São Paulo. Another, like I said, I'm trying to be light here and just show images. Last one of the day. Another office tower, like in Paulista Avenue as well, right? We could manage this very sinuous curve, comes down to the ground, create a nice detail, and some of the other stuff that it's under construction now, like this. Okay, I still have some time here. Right, some of the stuff that it's going on right now in our office, so some of the latest developments under development. So another thing we've try to use a lot is like play with these textures, right? So use the mullions, the details to actually create something intricate with the architectural language and bring like scale and language to some of those. So those details I think is interesting, like small overhangs and then transition, so you can actually do a architectural composition. But it does create like interesting moments here with this. Depends on the light of the day, the shades and all that, so kind of nice. Or otherwise, with these terraces, like to also do something playful with the terraces. And so it has some nice moments. And sometimes it's just, like a very, simple glass plate that defines the building. And what's interesting in this one, it has this shading device, but it's the surrounding, it's all chaotic of residential buildings, and then you have like this big mirror, you know, like in the middle of there, which is kind of interesting because it melts everything out, and it doesn't try to stand out, you know, like from the rest of the building, but it kind of blends it all, you know, with just disappearing in the landscape. But you get there, it's kind of you breathe out, you know, like it's like, oh, you have space here. It changes the environment. So, and also like some of this Mondrian-like, you know, we've been also playing a lot with that. So applying this is a interesting, you know, small-scale boutique office space. You know, it has the curved mullions on the corner there with this curved glass, just this recently built. And also, you know, like I like it. It blends with the nature as well, just reflecting everything. And some of the stuff that it's being developed there. Another project under construction. You know, like we did several studies here, just on the design side, you know, like trying to convince the client, you know, like to bring some texture, something more intricate, and not just a plain glass, because he wanted just plain glass. He got a plain glass in the end, obviously. So this was some of the studies we did at that time, you know, showing him. And this is under construction now. It's a very interesting project. It has this spiral, you know, internal gardens. So you can actually walk throughout the building from outside this office space. And then this is the kind of environment you have, you know, in each of the floors. And you can actually go from one to another. So you have like, if you lease like 3 or 4 different levels, you have all of this communication space, you know, like you have this buffer of green gardens, and it's right in the middle of the city. And this is an interesting project. We are, well, I would say we've been working now, but we've been working for the past 6 years actually, right? But it's interesting because it has a bit of everything, right? So, I mean, this is like a very, you know, we wanted like a very transparent, it's kind of a gastronomic, you know, like a tower we call. So we want this is a very busy road. We want this to be as transparent as possible. So this we are looking for, you know, like low-E. We're using the shading device. We are also using the insulated glass and all that. So the client understands that this is the place where we have to put all of our energy. But then the rest of it, we have like, this is a residential tower. This is a hotel. It has like 300 rooms. This is a 400 compact unit residential tower. This is a corporate space. This is a hotel, 12 cinema rooms. It has like a 1,500 people theater on the back, and then a mall on the first floors here. And this is a hospital here. So it's kind of everything in one. We're building up a small city. It's a 150,000 square meter built project. But it's interesting because it's not in an obvious area. It's kind of an area that the client wants to set up a statement and develop that area, develop a new center. But it's doing it. It's constructing it. But I like that, you know, like we went through this project before the pandemic, and then it came, you know, like the increase of cost of construction in Brazil, especially aluminum. So to such a point, he came to us like, you need to take aluminum out. I say, like, what? What do we put there, right? So we did a lot of rationalization, you know, like trying to minimize, you know, the volume of aluminum. Of course, still have, you know, mainly everything is glazed in aluminum. This is like a metal sheet there, precast elements, but this is already a result of a very rationalized building. We went through a very, you know, exhausting process there. So some of the moments. this is going to be very impressive. You know, this is the residential tower that you can see that. And, you know, like just to finish off here, I mean, we've been doing this, you know, playing a lot with this texture in the glass, you know, a lot of serigraphy. And so it's a small scale building. This is an office tower. We did a lot of exhaust, you know, like studies in how do we play with the gradients here, you know, like so, and this was, you know, very carefully studied. This is a residential building, which is part of our project, but you can see here all of these patterns that we've been developing. And then quite unique, like bringing those ideas into residential projects as well. So this is an interesting residential tower there. It's in a very confined environment. And so you can see that this was existing buildings here, this height. And then to the back, you have an amazing views. So what we did is we designed all of the first floors here facing the street, which was the nice environment because you have buildings all the back. And when you get to this level here, you kind of turn everything around. And then, so the upper levels look to the other side, which is basically to the greenest area in São Paulo. So overlooking from, you know, all the others. So it's quite unique based on that. And this is all of the glazed facade, which is opaque actually. It's done as just as a finish. It's not actually, you don't see anything, but it creates this texture. And, you know, like another residential building also bringing like, you know, like glazed systems to residential, like those frameless, like minimal, you know. And some of the stuff we also been playing, like bring these textures not in an obvious way. And how do we do that with laser impressions and all that? So. And also with this plinth facade, we can actually orient, you know, to the right sun orientation. So this is kind of the critical orientation we minimize, and then we bring this fritted pattern. This is a small building in Brasília. And shading device, of course, like the second skin, something, you know, trying to implement. This is a headquarters for a pharmaceutical company. School renovation that we did recently. And here we have like classrooms. We have like the louvers. You have like the inside. You have the lighting shelf. And then this is a steel mesh, which was, you know, it has like the 40% and all that. So we have like two different perforations, and this is transforming the school. Used to be an old office tower from the 90s. So we basically built on front here the big boxes, gymnasium, theater, patio, and all that. And then this is the common areas, and then the classrooms and all that. So kind of, you can reveal what was there before with a completely different image, but in a totally new building here. And this is some of the details here with the steel mesh. You can see the louvers there for the classrooms. And then some interesting moments of this thing just sticking out of the building and like peeling off. Another school. In this way, we brought this shading device, you know, as a high performance concrete. So do these louvers with the, you know, same idea. Some of the spaces inside with this a lot of studies of how much the light comes in. Ooh. I'm wrapping off here, but this is an interesting project. This is an area near Ceasa, which all the food comes inside São Paulo and then distributes. And then we also had, like, you wanted to do something different, the client wanted to do something different, and we said, like, okay, very local. You look at this image, you see all of this, you know, boxes of wood and foods and organics coming out. So we came up, you know, developing this shading device to put on the facade, and then play with that according to the orientation. So, like, you know, like east and west facades and all that, different depths. This is very concept design, but, you know, like bringing those elements as this second skin with a very unique pattern and identity to the building. And it had like this interesting middle spaces of communication of people that would actually, you know, like meet together. And then this is a church synagogue, which we developed all of these patterns here. This is also starting construction almost in next year, I think. Thank you.
Muchas gracias, José Luis.
Like I said,
Okay, muchas
there was
gracias.
a lot of specialists talking about glazing and systems here. I have nothing that I can add, you know, just show a little bit of our history here. So thank you for staying. Thank you for listening. Thank you for the invitation.